Stan Gibilisco here, with a little discussion of a topic covered in this book, Making Everyday Electronics Work, that just came out August 2013 from McGraw-Hill, written by yours truly. And I would like to refer you to something that I call Tanglewire Gardens. Tanglewire Gardens. This is the kind of haywire apparatus, kludge job. I believe they call it something like a Rube Goldberg contraption that everybody has if they have any kind of a computer with a lot of peripherals or a ham radio station or anything of that sort. And here's a photograph. You can actually find this photograph in black and white in the book on page 81, figure 3-11. This is what you see if you look underneath my ham radio workbench. Notice the heart of this apparatus right here is a pair of power strips. Power strips with little switches on them and 15 amp breakers with a bunch of cords and things plugged into them. 6 outlets each gives me a total of up to 12 outlets. 2 cords coming out of that thing. Or this whole assembly, actually. 1 out of each of these little strips. Now notice this metal plate down underneath it. I always mount power strips on a metal, non-flammable plate. In this case, it is an aluminum cookie baking tin. I believe I don't bake cookies, but I guess I could if I wanted to use that tin for that purpose. But I put it on put all these switch boxes like this on fireproof barriers because I've heard that these things can and occasionally do short out and catch on fire. And if you've got, for example, carpet underneath there, that could be a very bad thing. Underneath here, actually, the floor in this basement, which I call my nerd cave, where I'm making this video right now, by the way, with one of the appliances connected into this Tanglewire Garden underneath my ham radio workbench. All of this is mounted on a couple of plastic shelves that are about 1 inch thick. The reason for that is that if there's a torrential sudden rainstorm, which can occur sometimes here in the Black Hills of Dakota Territory, United States of America, and often without warning, we will get a little bit of water on that floor. And, well, water and electricity together aren't necessarily a very good combination. So, whereas I could place these power strips right on the concrete and not have to worry about fire, I would nevertheless not want water to seep up into them. Now, there's another characteristic that these particular power strips have in my arrangement, which I shall go into in a little more detail in just a second. These do not have transient suppressors in them. They do not. Surge suppressors, sometimes they're called. Surge protectors, they're sometimes called. I always laugh when I hear that because that's a double misnomer. The things that, the events that these transient suppressors are designed to protect your equipment against are sudden spikes in the voltage, very, very brief microsecond or millisecond spikes called transients that can occur on the line. For example, during one of those torrential rains, if lightning should happen to hit nearby and introduce an electromagnetic pulse onto the electrical utility wires. Transient suppressors, well, my Tanglewire Garden does have a transient suppressor, and again, it's in the uninterruptible power supply. That's where these 2 cords go, out of the picture to the right, uninterruptible power supply. Well, all that said, with these things not having surge protectors, so the surges, now a surge is something you get, for example, if you have a power failure. All your electricity goes out, but you have a lot of appliances turned on and you don't bother to turn them off. Then when the power comes back on, there'll be a sudden surge of current that is demanded by all these appliances at once. That can be very, very hard on a utility system, and the utility companies, I guess, don't like it much either if a whole bunch of people were to do that. it could actually cause the power to fail again right away. That's what a surge is. A surge is a current surge, an event that occurs with current, whereas a transient is an event that occurs with voltage. So these things do not have surge protectors in them. So the surges that might occur, should I leave everything on and then there'd be a power failure, those surges would be in no danger from me if I had surge protectors on these things. Okay, I've made enough of an issue of that. So this is a photograph. Now, that may look kind of dangerous, and all of that goes into this single outlet ultimately. But I've made certain that all of these appliances combined draw no more than about 10 amps from the electricity utility. So this is a 15 amp circuit, 10 amps being demanded. All these cords are in safe, put together in a safe way so that they don't, they're not laying around all over each other with splices and flammable materials anywhere nearby. Okay, good enough. Now, let's look at a block diagram of my Tanglewire Garden. 12 outlets in total from these power strips, once again, without transient suppressors. And that is because this uninterruptible power supply, which I have hacked, by the way, to provide a lot more capacity than it originally did. I have made a couple of videos about that particular scenario. I forget where in my YouTube channel they are, but they're about uninterruptible power supply hack. I believe it might be in my Nerd Cave Experiments playlist, or possibly in my Mysteries and Musings playlist. But you'll find there's two videos having to do with a UPS modification or hack. But an ordinary good, solid, uninterruptible power supply that you can get at an office supply store that provides computers. I believe Radio Shack has them, Best Buy has them, Walmart probably has them. A lot of places have them, but you want to make sure that you get one with sufficient capacity to handle your equipment so that if the power does fail, you have a few minutes to shut it down before the power actually gets discontinued to your vital electronics. You've all experienced what happens to a computer sometimes if you're in the middle of a program and there's a power failure and you don't have one of these, your computer can get kind of messed up when it comes back on. The operating system doesn't like that. So this gives you time to shut everything down or connect to an emergency generator if you are so predisposed, and I have one of those too. I've described that in some of my videos in my amateur radio playlist and other locations on my YouTube channel. So this uninterruptible power supply right here does have a transient suppressor built in. It goes to that single cord that goes to the wall outlet that you saw. It needs a good electrical ground in order to function. If that transient suppressor does not have a good electrical ground, it's not going to work. So you need to be sure that the so-called third prong in your electrical outlet really does go to an electrical ground. And in this book, Making Everyday Electronics Work, I do describe how you can test your system to be sure that it really does. That the third prong in one of your outlets really is grounded. It really should be. So, of these 12 outlets, only 10 are being used. These light arrows represent unused outlets in my case, but I could add 2 more things to my system. And you've got to make sure too, though, that you do not overload your UPS and you do not overload your utility outlet. If it's rated at 15 amps, you generally don't want to go to more than 3/4 or even 2/3 of the rated amperage, so that would mean 10 amps in my case. I don't want to exceed that if I can avoid it with a continuous load. So that is my Tanglewire Garden, and every good electronics nerd needs a Tanglewire Garden. Stangibelisco, signing off from the Black Hills of Dakota Territory, once again, United States of America. Until next time, have a good one.